Welcome to CWJah Talk 33. The world. The world. The world meaning what? Right? Is it the world that is the earth, that is the globe? Or is it us, the people who are on the earth? Are we the world? Well, according to a famous text that most of us have heard so much we can never forget, and even people who don't study the text like we try to do on this channel, they know the text because you see it often, in particular at football games when they're kicking the ball through the goalpost to score an extra point or a field goal. You see that banner, right? John 3:16, which states, God loved the world so much he sent his only begotten Son. And that's kind of the story of Christianity, right? I'm not going to get into it in the developed sense that the text is referring to. We've talked about that before, and I encourage you to read more in the context of John 3:16 as well. In fact, let's go there real quickly. We'll read just a brief part of it in addition to the part I quoted together. John 3:16, God loved the world. So that sounds more like us, right? The people. God loved the people so much he sent Jesus as the Messiah, the one we think came and gave his life so that as Adam's equal, he could repurchase humankind the way Adam lost us to sin and death, which he passed on through his choices, which was sin leading to death. In other words, he broke Jah's law when he didn't have to. But because he did, and because he didn't listen to Yahuwah, that attitude, that trait passed on to all of humankind. Because of that, God said at that time in Genesis that he would send a seed that would defeat the serpent and redeem the children of Adam and Eve. And it says, as I quoted, God loved the world so much he gave his only begotten Son in order that everyone exercising faith or believing in him might not be destroyed but have everlasting life. Look at the next verse. This is the one you don't often see, right? For God sent forth his Son into the world, not for him to judge the world, but for the world to be saved through him. The next verse kind of explains that a little more. And we know that Jesus does, obviously, he does become judge of those after he's in the world, right? He's not sent into the world to judge, but to save the world. The Messiah. His purpose isn't just to come as the judge, but as the Savior, who, as he comes to us, we're judged by being in the presence of the light. Look at the next verse. He that exercises faith in him is not to be judged. He that does not exercise faith has been judged already. So you see, it's really something God determines in association with us and Jesus while he's on earth, and then since that time forward in the way we respond to it, either knowingly or in the law of our heart. Okay, so we know this text, right? Most people know this text too, in addition to us. This is like one of those few texts, if not the most well-known, right? That anyone who may or may not even know the Bible well knows. God sent his Son forth into the world because God loved the world. Okay, what about this text in John then? Let's go to 1 John. This is the great message of John, right? The longer story and narrative of Jesus' life, John. Let's go to the letters of John. 1 John. We'll go to 1 John. And we'll take a look at chapter 2 first. There are a couple verses, but let's go here first. 1 John chapter 2. So God loves the world. We just read that. It's one of the most basic and well-known texts. First John 2:15, do not be loving either the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. So now do we have a contradiction? Or what is this? Is Jah's love different for the world than the way John here is writing that our love should not be for the world? Yes, he is. Because in John 3:16, we can see in the context that what? His love for the world was in saving the world, not for judging the world, even though people would be judged in association with him by believing or not believing. But the purpose was to save through faith in the one he sent forth, or the law of our hearts that he responds to in the same way, or in Romans, Paul. But here, the love that John's talking about us not having for the world isn't the kind of love we have to have, right, to go forth. Well, I mean, we do it for Jah, right? We go forth and we teach and we try to help people for Jah because we believe in Jesus. But it's also because we love people, right? Golden rule. We're not doing what we're doing apart from love for people. I don't think any of us are. I know I'm not. Right? So what's this love we're not to be having for the world that God has and that we also have for the world, in the sense that we want to help it, right? We want to save it by helping people believe in the truth. So he goes on to describe it, this love we're not to have. That's the love we're to have, right? The same love God has. He has it in a more powerful sense that he can actually provide the ransom, right? The Messiah. But we also present the Messiah and things related to him and to truth in general that will help people. So we love people. We're showing love for them. We do it in other ways too, right? Like the neighborly Samaritan, when we see people in need. The golden rule, that's one of our 3. You have to do that if you believe like me and I believe like the Bible teaches, right? Those are our main things. That defines us religiously. And we already know the one we follow did those things religiously, right? He was the best one in terms of how he handled things, but he had a different role and position that wasn't meant to last beyond his mission. There are many things Jesus didn't do that we do in this world that he may or may not have done, but that we're not to be compared with, because he's the Son, sent forth one, that we reflect and that we follow, but that we have to also proclaim to the world while we live in the world in a way that he didn't, at least not beyond the point that he died. And so he had a time where he obviously lived with his Father and did things, but it didn't go on in the way that most people's lives are in this world. Even if you're a Christian, right? We have to plan, we have to prepare and do certain things. It doesn't appear that he did or had to. So in the next verse, he goes on to say the kind of love we're not to have for this world and for these things versus the love we have to have to tell people these things is this. He says, because everything in the world, the desire of the flesh, that's pretty much exactly what it says. Desire of the flesh. That uses the same word in the Greek text, desire of the eyes. And the New World Translation says showy display of one's means of life. The Greek text just says, it's kind of like it says arrogant display. Cocky, kind of with an attitude display of your life. And that's kind of why I chose the thumbnail that I chose for this show. Because, let me see if I'll bring it up here. And then we'll take a look at it. The reason I chose the thumbnail with Dan Bilzerian is because when I read the text and it referred to different things, you'll notice that what it talks about, right? It talks about desire of the flesh, desire of the eyes, and then the arrogant display of life. Well, so when I was thinking about what do I want to portray, because this is really the key text for when we consider the world today, right? Other than in the way we already did, to have love for it, to help people religiously or socially, right? Neighborly Samaritan, or like Jah sending his son, in the way that the son acted, helping people, teaching people the truth. And we already talked about that. So now we're talking about the way we're not to be loving the world or the things in it. And in John, he describes it probably better than anyone in the direct sense as it relates to the world. At least when I look through all the instances of the world, which I did in the New Testament, he says, desire of the flesh, desire of the eyes, an arrogant display of life. Now, Dan Bilzerian, I don't really know him personally, obviously, and I'm not here to comment on him as an individual. It's more his image. He's kind of an Instagram, he's like the main, I guess. I don't know a lot about Instagram, just a little. I haven't really joined it and done a lot on it. I have an account, but I don't really use it. And maybe in the future I will. It's not about Instagram. It's just this is where Dan got his kind of start from what I understand. And then he had this company, Ignite, and there's a lot of issues with it. I encourage you, if you're interested, to look it up. Just type Ignite Dan Bilzerian on YouTube or Google, and you'll find quite a bit. But a lot of what he's presenting on Instagram is not true. It's not real. These aren't all his girls. If even one of them is. So why does he have all these girls? All right, so when I think of desire of the flesh, right, we desire flesh, we desire each other, but not like this, right? How many girls can you have at one time? Well, I'm here to tell you, unless there's another type of human, you can only have one at a time. You could try, but you're not designed for more than one at a time. You can. I'm not saying you can't have more than one woman according to the Bible and all these things. My point is, when it was people like Solomon and others with all these concubines and wives, they were praising Jah, right? Solomon was writing proverbs and songs and different things about Jah. And he was blessed. That's not what Dan Bilzerian is doing. He's promoting Ignite, which is kind of like, it looks to me like a Baphomet company, right? It's got the looks like the goat horns and all that stuff. And so, you know, he has that right. He can do whatever he wants. Except break the law, right? Consequences. So when I see this kind of picture, and I see a guy, you know, and this is just one. I mean, he's got tons of them, right? He's, like I said, the main Instagram, from what I understand, was or is Instagram, you know, driver or model. And he just keeps putting up a ton of pictures, doing all these different things. I looked at a bunch of them because I was looking at images to use for the world, right? Showy display. That. So I thought, well, you know, I could put stacks of money, I can put stacks of gold, a bunch of yachts and all this stuff, but what is really desire of the eyes, right? Desire of the flesh. Arrogant display. To me, that's something you're presenting repeatedly or even once if it's situationally correct for what I'm talking about. You're presenting something you can't have. Right? You're presenting something that's not real. And even if it is real, even if these are all his girlfriends, and if they are, he's not paying a lot of attention to them, is he? No, well, they're not really on him either. You can all see these people are, it seems like they're there just for themselves. And most of the girls are, if not all of them, paid models. That's what Dan has. He uses a lot of paid setups and pays all these models to get all these images and things that pump up his views, in addition to, from what I understand, a bunch of companies, to increase his following and all these things that he uses to market himself and his company. It's a showy display. It's not real. These aren't all his girls. Neither are all of the girls and all of the pictures in his or a bunch of other people's pictures when they present this kind of stuff, right? They're presenting this to people and saying, look at this stuff. You could have, I have this. Look at me, right? Do you think of Jehovah or Jesus or helping people when you see these things? I'm not saying they don't look good as people, right? I mean, some of them are wearing kind of weird things, but I mean, they're girls. They're having a good time, right? So I'm not. They're fine in that way. I'm talking about the display. What is it? What is he saying, right? It doesn't make any sense. It's just designed to overemphasize something that's not even true or possible. And even if it were, even if he could keep all these girls around him in a way that was like this all the time, like Hugh Hefner maybe, right? That's not really at all a good relationship, right? I mean, he's not helping them and they're not helping him. They're just there for the show. That's how almost all of his photos are and show. It's a show. It's a display. It's an arrogant display that's not even real most of the time, and if it is, it's still not good for you most of the time. Because it presents to your mind this idea, this desire, right? There's desire that's presented here. Desire of the eyes, the flesh, in this display of life, this arrogant display. One of many from Dan today. Right? And he could change, you could change, or whatever. Like I say, I'm just pointing out, this is his display. This is what he wanted to show. This is how he wanted to look with all these girls. Not having them be well represented in a way that made them respectable and honorable, and that would make people think good of Jah's things, right? I don't think that's what's going on in Dan's mind at all here. If I'm wrong, he can let me know. Either way, I wanted to show what I thought John was really talking about in a way that captured this desire of the eyes, the flesh, and the life. The arrogant, boastful presentation of life that's not real or even possible. And even if it was real, because it is possible to have all these girls, but not all at the same time. You see what I'm saying? You can't really, again, unless you're really with the right frame of mind, like Solomon, right? Where you have the blessing of Jah, the whole kingdom, and the ability to properly manage women, right? I mean, there are people and times where that can happen. So I don't want to be completely dismissive of a man who can manage women. There are plenty of examples of that in the Bible. We just don't have many today because we don't have as strong of women or men in those ways. I'm not saying it has to be those ways today. I'm just saying it doesn't appear that we're the same way. But they were. So when I make comments about how people like Dan today go to an excess of what we consider, more normal or possible, I'm not talking about the people like Solomon and others who are special exceptions or show how it can be done if done correctly according to Jah's will. That's not what's happening here, though, that I can see. This looks like those things John was talking about. Those three that he mentioned that we read, right? So that's what we have to deal with. Now, with this in mind, let's go to Mark chapter 4. All right, so we got this from John. Now we're seeing the kind of things in the world we're not to what? Love. We're not to love those things. Right? This is meant to kind of show, this is like fake love, huh? Well, I mean, they're all pretending to be attracted. Maybe they're attracted, but it's a setup. It's a Photoshop. It's a Photoshop. Photo shoot. They're doing this to generate views. Do you see love here? It's kind of like a fake, so to love this kind of thing, which is not really real or meant to display the right way, that would be, you would be loving something like the way Solomon could do it versus the way people today who don't worship Jah abuse women and do things like Hugh Hefner or Dan. Not saying Dan abused them, but the way he portrays himself is, it's demeaning to these women, I would say. Maybe even to him, right? Probably. Right? Because they don't love him. They really don't. They don't care. Look at him. They're not even looking at him. Not one of them. I mean, I understand there's a camera. He's not even... He's too busy eating. He doesn't care. Either way, it seems to me like we have the desire of the flesh, the eyes, and an arrogant presentation of life here. Whether or not that's Dan all the time or just here, that's for Jah and Jesus to decide. I'm using what he has put up to show his life in a way that leads to the desire of the eyes, of the flesh. And that appears to be an arrogant presentation of his life. It's not even real. That's why, right? If it was real, it's not really arrogant. It can be, but it's not always. If it's not real and you're just setting it up that way to pretend, well, you tell me. So, now let's go to Mark 4:18 and take with us what we just read there in 1 John about what we're not to be loving in the world, right? There's the very clear connection there stated in terms of loving, right? So you can be involved with things without loving them. Now, I'm not encouraging you to take chances in ways that would hurt you. But there is a difference between loving something, is there not? And just being involved with it in order to better it or deal with it because you have to. It's something that affects you. It doesn't mean you love it. You're dealing with something. Mark 4. This thing moves fast. Right? Mark 4. Now let's take a look at 18 and 19. Goes fast on me. All right. Mark 4:18, 19. All right. So this is part of the account where Jesus is talking about the sower. The sower sows the word, right? He talks about how the first one is sown alongside the road. Satan comes right when they hear it and he snatches it away from them. So he keeps them from even growing at all. Then it says, there were others who were sown in the rocky places. They heard the word, accept it with joy, but they don't have any root. And so they go for a little while, but then they fade and they stumble. Then there are others who are sown among the thorns, and these are the ones who hear the word, but the anxieties of this system of things and the deceptive power of riches and the desires for the rest of the things make inroads and choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. That kind of sounds like what John's talking about, right? And it's different a little bit, at least the first part. Anxieties of the system, right? Deceptive power, riches. It's all part of the world. That's why I was talking about and thinking about maybe putting images of a bunch of money and gold on the thumbnail. But again, that's not how John defined it in 1 John 2, right? He didn't talk about really money there. It's obviously involved, right? You're not going to have you're not going to have all these girls without any money, right? And no, girls, I'm not saying that's always only what you're looking for, but let's be honest here, right? They're not even going to be here for this photo shoot without money, a lot of money. And that's what they were paid, because that's who they are. They're paid models. All right. Deceptive power of riches, right? And the desire for the rest of the things. The desire, right? Okay, that's not everything, but there's this desire is coming up again, right? So needing something or wanting it in order to move forward and help people become more capable or stable in ways that are built for this world is different from really having a passion or a longing for something in a way that, like things that are promoted today, can be harmful to the Christian message. Because what are we doing? We're promoting this idea of being simple, right? If you have wealth, fine, but don't let it go to your head. Help people, right? If you have deep desire for riches and you're worried about all these things, you're not going to be able to help people. You're going to be all worried and busy about your things. So you're going to have a lot of weight, things pulling you down. So the people that are sown among the thorns, the world seems to me from this text to be a particular problem for them. The thorns are the things in the world that make it hard for them to grow. Hard for any of us to grow, right? But they're sown right among the thorns. Those ones are, right? We might be like on the soil, the fine soil next to the thorns. And it's like, okay, are we going to grow over and into the thorns? Or are we going to stay, growing the right way? Some are right there in the thorns, though, and so it really affects them. And that's why when you see different people, you might be thinking, well, gosh, why do they love the world so much? Why are they having such a hard time with material wealth or with sex and things? They're growing around thorns. They've got thorns all around them. And we can try to help. Just don't get yourself caught in their thorns. Right? Or maybe you're just growing near the thorns, okay? Don't worry, you might not be permanently in the thorns. Just stay away from them. And then they won't poke you. They won't hurt you. Your word won't become unfruitful, because that's what will happen if you let it, or if you allow the thorns to interfere with it. All right, let's go to another text. All right, this is good. Let's go ahead and take a look at Matthew 18. All right, we're going to get into a little bit of the pedo stuff. And we'll talk a little politics here as well because, well, you'll see. Right? Because at times, I've talked about how, my recent involvement in politics, to the extent that I think it will help potentially lessen child abuse, homo abuse, right? I'm okay. If it's legal, it's legal, right? Even if pedo is legal, there's nothing I can do except keep doing what I'm doing now against pedo and homo, while homo's legal, because they're abuse, right? They're bad for the people involved and society. There's really no good quality for either of them. I understand adult homos feel good about each other, they love each other, and fine. I understand that's beneficial to you in that way. It's just not how love is meant to be expressed, and so it's not the right way. You want to do it, go ahead. I'm not stopping you from anything legal. I just don't agree with you, and I think it's very bad for you. And we can show that. It's not me giving my opinion. Or if you don't want to hear it, great, for you. Well, I'm still going to give it to the people that want to hear it, so they don't get abused, right? And the same with children, right? So if I think my support for a particular candidate or issue or law might help lessen abuse, that's for me to decide. Or if I spend a little of my time with politics, is that worse than people who spend a ton of their time with false religion? Right? Is not false religion a part of this world? Just like we've agreed that things like wealth, desire of the flesh and eyes, and we can even say things like politics, right? Governments are part of the world. They're not really presented in a negative light in the text we've read so far, but we'll get to a few others in a minute. My point is, if governments and politics are a part of the world, how can you say religion, specifically false religion, is not part of the world? And if false religion is a part of the world, why are you spending so much time with it? Why are you spending so much time studying these false religious views and then arguing with these false religious people? Is that really helping them? I don't think so. Sometimes it does. I do agree. You can help strengthen people's faith, even your own. But, right? So So if you're willing to do that and claim it's okay, and I don't think it's the best way to use your time, but I don't try to stop you. I nevertheless get people who, like I mentioned before, in the pre-show or earlier in the show, on Twitter will come at me after I make one brief comment about a political issue and say, "Oh, Jesus was involved with politics, wasn't he?" Right? And they can't wait. Yeah, they're spending all their time arguing with false religions. Makes no sense, right? They'll take their time to come and judge me, which they're also not supposed to do, right? They're not my master. Who's my master if I'm a Christian? We already know. So only he can do that, unless it's something I'm doing wrong in a way that's affecting other people or, making his name bad, and I'm not repentant over it. Then people should confront me and say, "Hey, wait a minute. You keep doing these things, and these are clearly against the text, and they're against his name," and all this stuff. So then we go through the Matthew 18 process. Speaking of which, we're not going to necessarily read the part involving, how you're supposed to go to that person and take others if they don't listen, but it's in Matthew 18. We're going to read verses, we'll start in verse 2. Let me check these texts as well. Yeah, it looks like you guys are doing good in the comments. That's fine. Keep talking. I'll come back to it and see if there's anything I need to address. Otherwise, comment as you choose to. Matthew 18:2. So, he's talking about Jesus. Calling a young child to him, he set it in their midst. And he said, "Truly I say to you, unless you turn around and become as young children, you will by no means enter into the kingdom of the heavens. Therefore, whoever will humble himself like this young child is the one that is greatest in the kingdom of the heavens." Let's read a couple more. "And whoever receives one such young child on the basis of my name receives me also." Verse 6, "But whoever stumbles one of these little ones who put faith in me, it is more beneficial for him to have hung around his neck a millstone such as is turned by an ass, a donkey, and to be sunk into the wide open sea." Do you think Jesus is against pedo? I would say it's one of the things, if not the thing, he hates the most. Right? I'm sure there's a couple related to the Father and the Holy Spirit, but my point is, the Son is going to punish these child abusers so badly, we don't have to worry. Right? But that doesn't mean we don't try to help children, right? I don't see why it would. Verse 7, "Woe to the world due to stumbling blocks." Of course, the stumbling blocks must of necessity come. But woe to the man through whom the stumbling block comes. Woe to the world. That's not something Jesus says often. Right after he talks about those who stumble these children. If you're pedoing them, you're abusing them, you're stumbling them, you're making it more difficult, obviously, for them to grow and mature and to connect with God. Right? You're dehumanizing them. You're a sick person, and you're going to be punished. And if I can stop you or help influence those who can stop you in ways that aren't going to compromise my faith, why wouldn't I do that? On the basis of his name. Standing up for children? Right? If I'm doing something wrong, or if I'm promoting an issue, like legalizing pedo, right? If I were to get behind an issue like legalizing pedophilia, well, you could easily show by the very text we just read, I'm wrong. But it's not the politic or the political involvement that's wrong. Not yet. We haven't seen anything like that yet. It's the issue. Are you supporting or not supporting pedo in this example? To me, that makes all the difference. To me, that is the difference. Right? That's why I say, so Democrats today, it's hard for me to see how you could be a really positive, supportive Democrat in light of their policies and be a Christian. It's not for me to say ultimately. I would just want to know from you how you understand that. How you understand their pro-abortion, pro-pedo, pro-breaking U.S. laws stances in light of the Bible. And if you could show me the way I can show you that those things are wrong to do, well, then of course I'd listen. That's what I want you to do to me. And then we either agree or we don't. But the basis for our agreement or disagreement as Christians should be clear. I haven't seen anything yet. Now, there are other texts, of course. And if you know of any that specifically speak against being involved in politics, go ahead and highlight them. Let's take a look at another one. Let's go to Luke 9. Luke 9. Let's take a look first at just one verse to set up what we're going to go to next. Luke 9:25. Here, Jesus says, "What does a man benefit if he gains the whole world, but loses his own self or suffers damage?" Right? So comparatively, when it comes to the world and our own self, we're more important. The world doesn't have the value a lot of people give it. It has things, it's been built up in ways that we depend upon. So there's value there, but not lasting value. It passes away, it changes so frequently. Who's to say what will be next, right? That's not the case with Jah or the way he made the earth or for the world to be. So gaining the world in this sense would be what, right? We can't gain all the people really, maybe by control. But there's really a kind of a materialistic aspect here, right? In terms of the comparative value of pursuing things like wealth and your own person. Because, right, like Jesus' other illustrations, you can see where a person will build storehouses, right? He'll fill them up and say that he's been satisfied and now he has nothing to worry about. And then what does Jesus say? They're going to come for his life that night. Right? So you can, the world in pursuing and trying to gain it has no value for us. That's not the same as trying to address a specific issue happening in your day. Right? When you stand up to try to influence things in society in any way, in a positive direction, you're not trying to gain the world. How are you trying to gain something by losing your soul in helping people? Right? Materialistically makes sense, but helping people, standing against or for important issues, how is that gaining the world in a negative way? Doesn't seem to be the case. Let's go to Luke 12. A couple chapters away. Luke 12, let's start in verse 21. And we're going to go to 31. Let's take a look at what the account says here. A few more text counts and then we'll start wrapping things up. But we're not quite ready yet because we still need to define the world a little bit more. Luke 12. All right, so I was just talking about, and right before the start of this account we're going to read is the account I was referring to in terms of the one who builds up storehouses and puts grain in them and all these things, right? And then that night they're coming for his soul, right? So we're going to pick up right after that. Jesus says, "So it goes with the man that lays up treasure for himself, but is not rich toward God." Right? Then he said to his disciples, "On this account I say to you, quit being anxious for your souls as to what you will eat, your bodies as to what you will wear. For the soul is worth more than food, and the body than clothing. Mark well the ravens neither sow seed nor reap, and that they have neither barn nor storehouse, and yet God feeds them. Of how much more worth are you than birds?" Then he says, who of you, by being anxious, can add a cubit to his life? If therefore you cannot do this least thing, why be anxious about the remaining things? Mark well how the lilies grow. They neither toil nor spin, but I tell you, not even Solomon in all his glory was arrayed as one of those. If now God thus clothes the vegetation in the field that today exists and tomorrow is cast into an oven, how much rather will he clothe you with little faith? So quit seeking what you might eat, what you might drink, and quit being in anxious suspense. It's not going to change anything. Sometimes there is a little suspense, though, right? Things get tight, gets tough. We can become uncertain in these times. Just try not to worry. Try to have faith. It will be tough. But we can do it. We can get through any worry that might creep into our minds and just think, okay, that's not going to help me. What will help me? Calm, patience, pray to Jah. Get working, get doing, get busy. Pray to Jah. Stay busy, keep working, keep doing, keep praying to Jah. For all these things the nations of the world are eagerly pursuing, but your Father knows you need these things. Nevertheless, seek continually his kingdom, and these things will be added to you. Now, focus here, because notice that he talks about food, clothing, life. And then he says, these are the things the nations of the world are eagerly pursuing. They're loving those things, wouldn't you say? The way that 1 John 2 is kind of talking about. Isn't that similar to what we're seeing here? This eagerly pursuing. Do we not need food? Do we not need clothing? Do we not need some money? Do we not need life? So all the things the world are pursuing or loving, we also need in our life. And we get them. We get them by not loving them. We get them by trusting in Jah because we believe he already knows what we need. Does that mean we don't have to do anything? No, because that's not how we're made. We're made to do things and have faith that God will see we're doing and believing, and then do what he says our doing and believing will result in. And I've seen it my whole life. I can't say I've ever been disappointed in what these texts are teaching. And I think most of you are probably like me, which is why you're here, right? So we believe. Okay, well, this is the world, though. Is it not? He says right here, these are the things that the nations of the world are eagerly pursuing. So that's part of the world. We just don't eagerly pursue them the way they do. Like that's the goal, right? Whoever dies with the most toys wins, right? Or we just want to stuff every moment of pleasure in our body at everyone else's expense. And then when we die, who cares, right? No, that's not how Christians live life. We make mistakes. Sometimes we get off the rails. But when it comes to what we're trying to accomplish, right? We're basically trying to get the same things the people of the world are in need of, but our attitude is different. We don't love those things the way the world does, according to 1 John 2. We're not eagerly pursuing them the way the nations of the world do. But we need them. We're after them. There's a difference in the perspective. The way they're after them and the way we're after them. Right? We're after them in order to survive and help people get through this life knowing we're going to endure persecution for our religious views, right? Whereas if we just join in the world's pursuit of all these fleshly desires and materialistic things, well, then they won't notice us so much. In fact, let's go to another text. Let's go ahead and take a look at John 7. We're going to start to wrap things up because I think you can see here with me that there's a difference, right? 1 John 2 made a difference between loving the things in the world, the desire of the eyes, the desire of the flesh, the arrogant, boastful way of life that usually isn't even true, right? It's just a lie. Or you're paying people to make you look better than you really are. And so you're not really being true to us or to yourself. That's not the way Christians live life. We're real. We make mistakes and sometimes we fall victim to the world in ways that we regret. But we don't pursue it. We don't love it. We feel bad when we make a mistake that's kind of like in that direction. It affects us in a bad way. They're not bothered by it. It's their way. And that's okay. They're allowed to do that. I'm just showing you the difference in their display of their desire of the eyes and of the flesh and arrogant way of life. That in Dan's case isn't even the way he's presenting it. And even if it was, it's not the right way to live life. Because it's not possible, again, unless in certain circumstances where you're doing the right things in the right ways that would allow you to succeed with multiple women in this case, right? So it's an excess of the flesh, of the desires of the flesh, and of one's ways of life. It's too much. That's the world. That's what the world does. It's always too much. It's never enough. From one thing to the next, right? You don't even know what's happening sometimes. They're changing so fast. Because they don't really like anything except what's next. They're never satisfied. You think they're going to be satisfied? Not unless they get away from Dan. Right? Or he gets away from them. John 7. Because we have words from someone who came down from heaven, in our view. And he said, the world has no reason to hate you. He's talking to his disciples back then. But it hates me, talking about himself. Because I bear witness concerning it that its works are wicked. The world is what Jesus bears witness against and what his disciples have sinned, including us, right? So now it hates us. The world hates him and us because we bear witness about it that its works are wicked. We point out things that are excessive that even though we grant you the right to do, we don't think are good for you. And if you want to do them, great. We still don't think they're good for you. And we don't have to do it that way. So we say, okay, this is how people like Dan like to do it. We do it differently, right? And so they hate us. They don't like that we don't follow in that way. Same with homos, right? Many homos, not all. But I've met a lot. And if you're not into their way, or you're not positive toward the abusive practice of homo, they don't like you. They don't want you around. And I've been discriminated directly multiple times, even though I was very friendly to them. Doesn't matter. If you're not their way, they hate you. And what's their way, right? It's not like I'm ignoring something good for me. Right? Either in Dan's case as an excessive hetero, or in the case of homos who are abusing their bodies in a way that isn't designed like hetero is. Right? So it's a different kind of issue. You can have hetero excesses. There's homo abuse. There's pedo abuse. There's all kinds of things in the world that we don't like, we don't love, and we don't pursue. And That's why the world doesn't like us. See, that's how you know you're not part of the world. You want to know how you're not part of the world? Ask yourself, does the world hate you? Then no, you're not part of the world. It says so right here. We bear witness, right? So if I stand up politically by either voting for a candidate or an issue, right? It's not like I'm out there campaigning or donating tons of money I could be using elsewhere stuff. And even if I chose to, again, you're not my master and I'm not yours. So unless I'm defaming the name or openly opposing something that's Jah ordained or Christian or hurting my fellow human in a way that's not defensive and appropriate, then I get to choose. So do you. He says right here, you bear witness against the world's works, doesn't like you. Right? So if I stand up against pedo or against homo without breaking any laws, right? I don't discriminate. In fact, I go out of my way to accommodate people because I know they think I might if I'm a Christian. So I'm like, no, you got it all wrong. You've just been lied to and abused, right? So I don't support abuse. If you want to abuse yourself, that's fine. I'm not going to discriminate or nothing. I'm not going to promote it. Right? So I'm bearing witness, right, that work, the homo act is wrong. Pedo act is wrong. Excessive hetero. But that doesn't mean they have to stop doing it. But if I think a candidate is going to be more or less friendly or open to those forms of abuse, then I'm going to make a decision that I think is best informed towards what I think is right. I bear witness by being for or against an issue that is related to the things in the world. So if we're bearing witness that the things in the world that we're dealing with politically or religiously are wicked, how could you be part of the world? When you're part of the world, you're doing the things of the world and you're promoting it, right? So it's important for us to have the right perspective on what the world is and how and if we're a part of it. And just being involved in a discussion or an issue religiously or a discussion or an issue politically is not itself an indication you're a part of this world that's at odds with God. In fact, if you're a Christian and you're able to stand up or deal with things in a way that promotes truth and shows that what the world is promoting is wrong, you're bearing witness that it's wicked. Right? You're the opposite of being in the world. Let's go to John 15. We're going to wrap it up after a few more texts. But let's make a few more points in association with this concept of the world that we're supposed to love and also not love. Love in the sense of try to help and assist and bear witness against things that are wicked. And the world we're not to love when it comes to things like excessive desires for the flesh or a boastful, arrogant way of life that promotes materialism or possessions and things in ways that either aren't true or that are so excessive that they bring all the attention to you when really where's our focus supposed to be? Can your focus be on Jah if you're Dan and you're with all these women? Well, if you're already known as a servant of Jah, right, and they came to you like the women with Solomon and they just want to be with you because you're a servant of Jah and it's not otherwise against the biblical teaching. So I make that exception aside. Do you think Dan is focused on Jah or could be with all these women around him? Doesn't seem like it to me. And it doesn't seem like they can either, right? So if you don't have someone who's focused on Jah, it's really not going to matter how many you have. But in this case, it's going to be much more difficult because you have more people who aren't focused on Jah around you promoting this fleshly view of life that's really not realistic. Certainly not for the majority of humans by far. So it takes the attention away from Jah and puts it on humans in a way that's excessive. That's the world. This in the fleshly kind of boastful way of life way. And then we have ways that relate to different abusive practices. Materialism and things that if we pursue and love, we're going to have a much more difficult time getting into the kingdom, right? All right, so let's take a look at John 15. John 15:19. If you were part of the world would be fond of what is its own. Now, because you are no part of the world, and I've chosen you out of the world, on this account, the world hates you. Let's go down to John 17, something very similar there. John 17:14. I have given your word to them, he's praying to Jah, but the world has hated them, because they are no part of the world, just as I am no part of the world. I make request to you not to take them out of the world, but to watch over them because of the wicked one. They are no part of the world, just as I am no part of the world. Right? And so we know, of course, that we have to live in a society. We're part of the world in the sense that we go to the schools in the world. We work at places of employment. Right? We have religious institutions or buildings, places of worship. In the broadest sense possible, these are all parts of the world. But in the more specific sense in which we're not to be loving or pursuing the world, the things having to do with desires of the flesh, eyes, and a boastful way of life, materialism, pedo, these are the things directly associated with the world that is alienated from God. So now let's take a look at how we're not to be taken out of the world, but to be watched over because of the wicked one, right? Wicked one's ruling the world. He has all this power and influence. We're in the world. We have power and influence, but we have to decide where to use it, right? We have to decide what to get involved with. We can't champion every issue, and our primary focus is the three and our beliefs in Jah, Jesus Christ, Golden Rule. But in association with those things, we're part of a society. We have schools. We have things that affect us directly as people, as a nation. So being Christian and in that condition, part of the world, part of a nation, part of a city, part of a society, how can we exist in that collective world and not be part of it? We've talked about a few ways: in the excessive desire ways, in the boastful presentation of life, pursuing things that the nations pursue, right? That we need, money, clothes, food, but that they over pursue. So how can we more effectively exist in that condition where we need most of the things they need, but they're over pursuing, loving, going to an excess, not bearing witness that they're wicked, right? They're just going along with everything that the world presents without saying, no, that doesn't make sense, or no, that doesn't go there, that's not how that works, all that stuff. Right? You bear witness, you present facts, information. That's what a witness does, and tell the truth. There's something else we can do. Let's go to Ephesians and then we'll wrap this up. Ephesians 6. Right? So we know we have difficulty. We know we have things we have to deal with. We know there are some things that are not good to be a part of because they get us involved in practices that are going to hurt us. Right? If we get involved in the whole, nightlife scene or sexual scene or just, hookup culture, we're going to have more problems. Right? We're going to have multiple partners in ways that could lead to either more, diseases or unwanted pregnancies and things that can complicate your life and just make it more difficult for you in ways that if you pursue it more appropriately and without getting too involved with people that may not share your interests, then it can be, you can still achieve the same satisfaction of a relationship, only without the difficulties that often come with hookup culture, right? So you have that, you have other things that can steer you away, pursuit of money, right? Jobs, position, we're all capable in ways that if we really focus on, we could make a lot of money. And money can be good. But if we pursue it like the nations do, right? Like Jesus was talking about, we love money, right? The root of all kinds of terrible things. love of money. We don't want to be loving money. We don't want to be loving the world. We need money. We need the world. We're in the world. We don't want to love it, though. We want to love Jah. We want to love Jesus. We want to love our fellow man. We want to help the world. But we don't want to promote the things that the world promotes in an excessive way that does not honor Jehovah. If we make mistakes, we do at times find ourselves in those positions, then we move away and we start doing the right things again. We stop promoting the things that are at odds with Jehovah. It's very difficult because the world's very fluid, right? So we've always got to be aware. What are we doing? Right? And if the world is not really down with you, right? If it hates you, you know you're probably good when it comes to being a part of the world or not. But what else have we got? Ephesians chapter 6. We've got some equipment. We've got some equipment to use. As we exist in a world that doesn't like us. And they can like us at times because we try to do good, and at times we can even earn praise, right? Like we should. That's what Romans says. Refers to the governments as God's arrangement that if we do good, can earn praise from. Yet at the same time, we're supposed to bear witness that the works of the world are wicked. So it sounds like to me that bearing witness that the works of the world are wicked is a way to earn praise in the arrangement of God at times, unless, of course, that arrangement becomes so corrupt that in bearing witness against the works of the world, we're bearing witness against its works, right? Ephesians 6. Let's read 10 through 18, and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you all for joining me. It's been a nice discussion. I hope this encourages you, helps you better understand our place in this world and what the world is and how we're supposed to be showing love for it but not loving the things in it or over pursuing the things that would ultimately be to our detriment, and that we can achieve in the right ways according to Jah's ways, not the ways of the world. Ephesians 6:10. Finally, go on acquiring power in the Lord and in the mightiness of his strength. Put on the complete suit of armor from God that you may be able to stand firm against the machinations of the devil. Right? What did Jesus say? Don't take them out of the world, but watch over them. Because of whom? Wicked one, the devil. Here, it's telling us to put on this armor, right? This figurative armor. Jesus is saying to watch over them while they're in the world. And here, Paul's describing the armor we are given while we're in the world. Because we have a wrestling, right? A fight. Not against flesh and blood, but against the governments, against the authorities, against the world rulers of this darkness, against the wicked spirit forces in heavenly places, right? Not against flesh and blood, but against the governments, right? So, in the one sense, the governments are God's arrangement that he uses to execute judgment against the wicked, that we can earn praise from, right? But we're also against the governments because the governments aren't really here to last as God's agent, right? They kind of keep things stable and they do render his judgment against the wicked in ways that we can also earn praise from. Same Paul that wrote this, wrote that in Romans 13. But we also struggle against it, do we not? Because sometimes the governments are not friendly towards Christianity or religion. Or sometimes they're just overtaxing, right? They're just abusive regulatorily or in ways that make it hard for us to make a living or to do the things that we're called to do and that we really want to do to praise Jah. All right, so we can be against the governments in many ways, just like we read in Acts. But those who were brought before the rulers also receive praise, right? So at times we're against and at times we receive praise from the governments. But the very fact that it says right here, against governments. We have a suit of armor, my friends, from God to stand against the governments if we have to. Right? That could be an attack, a persecution, or what if they're attacking us with their laws and regulations and beliefs that are against the truth or that are abusive? It says right here that we can be against governments. We're not always going to be in the earning praise situation with them because we don't always agree and we do things Jah's way. So if governments start doing things that are against Jah's way, to the extent that we can, it says right here we're able to be against them, against the authorities, and against the world rulers and spirit forces, all of them. But it says we're not to be fighting flesh and blood, like real fighting, right? That's what he's talking about. We have a spiritual fight against these governments, the way they treat us, the way they at times oppress us. Sometimes we get praised, but again, not always. And then we have the devil among us. Jesus said that in John 17. Watch over them because of him. And here we are, reading about this armor we have to resist his attacks and to fight back. Right? We have a wrestling or a fight not against flesh and blood, but against these. Right? We do get to fight them. And that's for you to decide to what extent you think you should fight them and those with you. Right? Christian witnesses of Jah, 3 things. Yahuwah is God. Jesus is the Messiah. Golden rule. As long as you don't violate those things, and you're standing against the government for reasons that pertain to the right ways and the truth, I'm with you. Right? We're not going to do it and make a spectacle that wouldn't be honorable to Jah or that wouldn't be true. We don't need to. We should take advantage of the opportunities we have to do as much good as we can, wherever we can, and fight against governments and authorities that are abusive to humans. It's that simple. And the spirit forces that are behind them pushing all this stuff. Right? This non-gender stuff, that's the spirits. Right? They're the ones that aren't gender in that way. And so it's like they're inhabiting these humans or possessing them in ways that are making them more like them. And then just making them make no sense, right? So we deal with these kinds of spiritistic things that are directly affecting humans, but that we can't always determine the full spiritual source or extent, right? We have to deal with the humans. So we have to deal with the issues. And this text gives us that authority. Further, it says, verse 13, on this account, take up the complete suit of armor from God, that you may be able to resist in the wicked day, and after you have done all things thoroughly, to stand firm. To resist in the wicked day. The day that people are presenting wickedness, you can resist that. I'm here to tell you that pedo is wickedness. Right? So is homo. It's abuse to humans. I don't care what they say or do. They're wrong. Anyone can show that. They can find out on their own. They don't care. They like that abuse. They like pedo. They like flaunting their life that's not even real. None of it leads to anything better than the way we were made to be, which is better, and the way Jah says is right? All this other stuff is not light. It's a false light. It's not right. Jah's way is right. Stand firm, therefore, with your loins girded about with truth, having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the equipment of the good news. Above all things, take up the large shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all the wicked one's burning missiles. Accept also the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, that is God's word. The sword. And you know what you do with the sword. It's not for chopping wood. Not unless you have to. But we're not here to fight unless we have to. If we have to, we have the armor from God and the weapon to use. With every form of prayer and supplication, you carry on prayer on every occasion in spirit. And to that end, keep awake with all constancy and with supplication on behalf of the holy ones. So I think it's pretty clear that when we read texts like in James, let's go there real quickly. We didn't go there, but it pertains to this whole issue of the world. It comes up often, James 4:4. When we read things like this, adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Whoever, therefore, wants to be a friend, right? Loving the world, eagerly pursuing the things the nations pursue, that we also need. But we're not over pursuing. We're not going so far over the top. It's not even real anymore. We're keeping things in the right measure. We're praising Jah. We're still presenting the good news. We're bearing witness that the works of the world are wicked. That's not wrong. That's not being part of this world. And in fact, the world proves that by hating us. Right? They don't accept us. They're not listening to us. And if they do, they would benefit, right? And sometimes they do. But then eventually they start hating us because this world is not run by Jah and Jesus in the full way that it will be one day. And so until that day, what we're told to do is to trust in Jah, to believe in Jesus, and to follow the golden rule. To be no part of the world in the sense that we don't love the things in the world, we don't eagerly pursue the things in the world, or make friends with the things or the people in this world that aren't interested in Jah or Jesus or the golden rule, at least, right? So while we're going to do our best to show love for this world and the people in it, all of them, that does not mean we have to become like them, nor make bad decisions just because we may at times see things with our eyes that start this desire that could lead to sin. We can resist it. We can look past some of the things that, while difficult, are just not good for us in our religion, right? We can achieve these things in the right way by doing the right things, by doing our best to follow the ways that are best, Jah's things. And if we do that, we'll get all the rest. We'll get every single thing we need to pass the test. And then, in addition to that, we'll be blessed and we'll be among those who enter in to God's rest.